All right. Hello, everybody. This is AJ Agarwal, CEO of Alumnify. And today, what I want to talk to you about is the second step of our process in terms of getting young alums and millennials to engage in our organizations. And that's getting them to commit to something. So today will be a short video. I want to just focus on this step. And really, why I want to just focus on getting them to commit to something is it's really the part of the engagement process that most organizations really struggle with. And so to attack this step, I think the first thing we need to look at is how we define a commitment. Now, for many organizations, they look at it strictly from monetary value, how much they donate, how much they give if they're buying a product, etc. What I want to challenge you to do instead is look outside of that, especially for millennials, because millennials typically don't have as much money as older generations. So the way they commit to something can come off very differently. There's a couple of examples here. So volunteering their time. The millennial generation is very busy. So for them, time is extremely valuable. The fact that they can commit time to something they care about is truly powerful. And if you're able to get access to that time, it's a huge win. Going to an alumni event, also a great way for alums to get together, millennials to start that process in creating an amazing relationship with their university. And finally, serving the leadership role. In a previous video, we talked about how important it is for alums to take on leadership roles. So getting them to take those roles is really huge, and it sets a solid foundation for them to be engaged later on. So those are the four things that I want to open up with in terms of getting them to commit to something. Now, with that said, this is where most organizations fail in the engagement process. And these are some ways, and I think the most common things that we see when we get users to a website to commit to something where they fail. And by taking these steps in mind and editing your site accordingly, you can really optimize the conversion rate that you have of people going to your site and then purchasing a product or donating. The first is that we see no call to action on the website. So when you have somebody go from social media, from a blog post, from a referral, and they come to your website, that means they're interested. And you want to make it as easy as humanly possible for them to complete that engagement action. So whether it's donating, being able to leave a donation, they can see it right on the front of the page, or go to an alumni event, etc. All of those things need to be very apparent. They shouldn't have to click through a bunch of pages to get to that call of action. So what you want to do is, if you have an alumni website or your company and you have a company website, make sure the user can actually take that initial call of action without having to go to a bunch of different pages. I also encourage you to remove the amount of text you use and use a lot more graphics. The reason being is, especially for millennials, they have a very short attention span. They don't want to take a lot of time and read times 12 New Roman font. They just don't want to do it. So use a lot of graphs. There's a bunch of easy ways you can put together infographics, PowerPoint presentations, and all of those are better alternatives than a bunch of text. A one that I think a lot of people ignore is the size of the buttons on their site. And I think if you increase the size of the buttons that you have, it actually goes a long way into getting users to take action on the site. Whether that's subscribing to a newsletter, looking at a blog post, leaving a donation, buying a product, etc. Increase the size of your buttons. Make sure they're very easy to see. I would say the most important one out of this entire list is making sure your site is mobile responsive. We talked in previous videos about the amount of millennials who really focus on looking at things through their mobile device. It's huge. And so there's an easy way you can tell if your website's mobile responsive. Plug in the URL into your phone and go to it. If it looks messed up and you have to shift through everything and you can't see all the text and it doesn't look like it was meant to fit a mobile screen, it's probably not mobile responsive. And today it's very easy to edit our websites to fit our mobile devices. So talk to whoever's in charge of your website or your IT department. Also, beautiful design. I think that outside of school colors, there's definitely ways that we can make websites look really nice. Even increasing, like we said, button sizes, making sure there's lots of pictures, making sure that we use text that's fun and inviting. Those small things really go a long way. And this last one's an optional one. We don't even do it for our site on Alumnify, but having a Facebook or Twitter feed on the site can really go a long way in terms of getting users on those social media outlets. So how to optimize donations. I think that in terms of just donating, whether that's time, money, etc., there's a couple of things that we should consider for this generation explicitly. The first is impulse giving. So they actually found in a survey that millennial alums are most likely to give when they're in the heat of the moment. So when they're at an alumni event, a sporting game, etc. A great example would be if you had a mobile app where when your team scored a touchdown, all the users would receive a push notification and could donate $7 to their university. That's a great campaign that millennials would really resonate with. The second one is donating through mobile. And I think it's important to note with this that while mobile donations are increasing, I still think desktop is most relevant for the sheer fact that it's much easier to put in credit card information over a desktop device. Now, with that said, I think over the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to see huge transitions to mobile, especially as companies are making it easier and easier for people to pay over the phone. And then finally, peer-to-peer and event fundraising. So we talk about this a lot, but the millennial generation is really a generation that likes to be with their friends. They like to share information with their friends, and they have huge networks. So when you have an alum leave a donation, make sure you're giving them the option to tweet that out, to post it on Facebook, to put it on any other social networks that they're on, to talk about it very easily and share it, because that's how you're going to build organic growth and really tap into the networks of these millennial consumers. And so in the next video, we'll talk about the third step, which is then from getting an alum or a user to buy our product or to donate, how do we after that get them to actually turn to advocates for our organizations, to get them to market our products? And we'll talk about that next. So thank you guys so much. Please remember to leave any questions, comments, feedback. My email is aj@alumnify.co, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks.